This material addresses identity struggles, feelings of inadequacy, and the unhealthy coping mechanisms used to mask them. It highlights seeking accountability and relying on God's empowerment for overcoming addiction and fostering healthier relationships. Observe how this video can help you assist those who struggle to seek God's empowerment to make the right choices. It's an honor to be able to talk with you today about a couple of important issues that are connected to pornography use. I wanted to write a book, but I thought the title might be so offensive the church wouldn't want to read it. The title of the book is How the Church Helped Develop the New Age Movement. You see that the church, over a period of time, struggled with individuals who had alcohol abuse. And as a result of a problem that we in the church have, it became very difficult for them to understand how you could believe in God, be close to God, and yet continue that obsessive drinking behavior. You see, we believers want complete miracles. We don't want to see people like Jesus was told by one, walking like trees. We want everything wrapped up in a neat package. And yet sometimes in the process of recovery, God is not just helping us work on that one specific behavior. He's trying to work on all of us. And so sometimes, instead of a straight line between here and our recovery, it seems awful 2 steps forward, it zigzags, to be frank. Another person's failure beside us as they walk with God in an area of challenge in their life represents potential for our own failure, and thus we judge them. Now, we do all of this, our fear of failure, paradoxically, while at the same time, we know that we continue to sin. Failure is part of who we are. Whether you are a pastor who is struggling with porn use or know someone who is understanding the following issues that increase someone's motivation to watch pornography, you need to be prepared to understand how to deal with failure and what makes failure such a challenging issue for us to accept. If we're not careful, how we define ourselves becomes increasingly controlled by our circumstances. How we value ourselves gets wrapped up in our results. Life ebbs and flows. We swing back and forth between two extreme polar opposites. We go from exhilaration, I've been defeating what challenges me, or deep sense of shame and sorrow. We need to learn how to manage ourselves through these highs and lows. We need to have a realistic identity that is imbalanced. In the role of the pastor or any kind of leadership, it's deceptively easy to seek a sense of power to cover up our own feelings of inferiority and inadequacy. That process often brings us right to the edge of failure. When we can't see our own value, we attempt to compensate for it through valuably helping others. The more others appreciate what I do for them, it temporarily makes up for what I know I'm doing on the side, and it helps me hide it from myself and others. All these things bring us to the edge of failure. We may try to lose ourselves in our busyness. In this way, we are silently killing off our ability to be fully present in life. Our list of duties and obligations grow and grow in leadership, and eventually we become more of a human doing instead of a human being. We actually mechanize ourselves and start to go through life automatically and like a robot. We neglect the very foundation of our existence, which is God, by giving more significance to our accomplishments than to living our lives fully. We don't give ourselves any time to nurture identity or to receive love from supportive relationships, and some of us don't even give ourselves time to participate in important interests and hobbies that would relax us, that would fill our soul. We avoid times of meditation because we're afraid as we slow down, things will bubble up within us that we don't want to see. Porn is used as an emotional steroid to help us feel temporarily excited and in control, and powerful to fight against our own self-imposed deadness. Another thing that it takes us to the edge of failure is the pressures of our life can feel overwhelming because we tend to look at things perfectionistically and we rigidly follow a routine that keeps us stuck. As a pastor, there are so many different hats you have to wear, so many different responsibilities, and they require a flexible mindset. You need to switch back and forth between way different roles like administration, sermon writing, prayer, preaching, relationship building, and responding to all those people who are hurting that could say, "Would you be my counselor just for a minute?" We must recognize that we represent the understanding of who God is in the lives of others and lead by example and show ourselves grace so that when we tell them they need to do likewise and take in God's love, we demonstrate how this is possible. We can't ignore our unresolved emotions. They'll take us to the edge of failure. Even if we try to repress them and push them down, they hunt us down and make their presence known. However, when faced, these very challenging feelings, which we try to cover up, will create new strengths if we learn how to face them and not temporarily just try to cope with them. When our reality becomes too hard to deal with, often we create these fantasies, different ways of thinking through life that temporarily make us feel heroic or okay, but replace us from being able to get there in a more realistic fashion. What takes us to failure is when we don't recognize the truth behind 1 Peter 5, 8, and 10. That verse reminds us that there's a prowling lion waiting to destroy our ministry. The enemy is ready to attack our marriage through disagreements. It's going to make us so busy we quit dating our spouse. The admiration of others being ministered to is going to go to our heads, and we're going to seek that easy fix versus some of the tougher conversations we have to have within our family. Inappropriate expectations about our mate and our family will agitate us to the point that we become reactive to these people who falsely define us. We're used to being the center of attention and don't understand why our families don't see it the same way. We need to perform at a moment's notice, and as a result are used to ignoring important aspects of who we are that need to be looked at and those messages received. This increased stress creates relational tension as we, as partners, attempt to navigate through church life. When we pretend to be what we aren't, we look for props to maintain this lie. Another thing that takes us to failure is that we fail to spend time alone with God. We don't see how God is speaking to us through the circumstances we find ourselves in or through the words of others. When we fail to acknowledge a transgression or even look honestly at a broken relationship, we find ourselves distracted and unable to see where God wants to lead us. We must examine ourselves regularly to discover where and when we need a deeper form of confession or seek reconciliation. In our isolation, we don't create growth and accountability partners where we can talk about our failures, temptations, and struggles, and unmet needs and dreams. When we don't have someone to share with, we often seek to relieve our stress through a maladaptive choice. We have to be aware of our tendency to seek isolation and remain safe. We fail to guide or meet our sexual needs healthily. God designed you for sexual expression. It is safer to acknowledge your sexual desires than to deny their existence. We must always evaluate how our normal sexual desires assert themselves to be expressed. That denial merely buries our feelings underground so that our sexual desires can increase outside of our awareness. When you and I assume we have everything under control, that's the time we're most in trouble. When we believe we are fully in control of our thoughts and actions, we fail to guard against what might tempt us. In our narcissism, we start to believe the lie that we don't need God. When we entertain in secret a fantasy, eventually it becomes more likely to be something that we act upon. Another thing that takes us to the edge of failure is we must recognize the triggers that make us feel inadequate, unloved, weak, and worthless. It's okay that you don't handle everything perfectly. And knowing what gets to you allows you to bring to God and even share with friends areas of struggle way before you become defeated by them. When you and I wallow in shame and we feel we have nothing to lose, that's when we're more likely to become involved in those risky behaviors. Left unchecked, our narcissism can lead to sexualized feelings and thoughts as we try to exert power and control over others. We may overlook someone's value and view them as objects for our sexual thoughts and actions. We have given so much, we feel we need a break, and let's just give ourselves one more time. We need to learn how to take in love and affirmation in ways outside of our sexual encounters. You and I must deal with our failure to develop positive relationships and learn how to reach out and understand the opposite gender, which oftentimes it's easy for us to distance ourselves from. We are more likely to objectify someone when we don't take the time to know their name and listen to their heart. Learning to be open and honestly relate to someone else's giftedness helps us accept a woman's value and understand her own specific language as she shares her needs and her desire for affirmation. The power men think women have over them often becomes demonstrated when it becomes imbalanced by a male's sexual preoccupation as he starts to use her in inappropriate ways. Past interactions with porn create neuron patterns and habitual use reliance so that your neurobiology reward centers keep doing the same things over and over again. All of these issues bring you to the point and the edge of failure. Any type of dependency or fear of asserting ourselves makes it more likely that we're going to want to get our needs met in another way. Another thing that leads us to the edge of failure is that porn covers over our real needs. Our real needs to take care of ourselves. Our real need to feel safe and secure. Our needs to have relational bonds, have self-esteem, love, rest, learning, and purpose and meaning. All of which are necessary to create a strong identity that consistently expresses a godly character. You and I need to know that one of these 6 lies is going to bring us to the edge of failure regarding pornography. First lie, we enjoy it. Second lie, we can stop at any time. Third lie, it's a secret. Fourth lie, it doesn't hurt us. Fifth lie, it doesn't hurt anybody. Sixth lie, it's the only way to manage our problems. We need it. We compartmentalize pornography's influence on our personal development and how porn use stunts each element of our identity. You will not be the same you if you are involved in pornography use. Lastly, we must respect porn's powerful influence by learning to run from it instead of playing on the edges of it. We need to follow Joseph's example with Potiphar's wife and get out of there when there's a danger for any kind of regression and relapse. Reality is that all of us will continue to be on the edge of failure. Failure isn't inevitable always. We have God to empower us to make the right choices. Part of learning to include God in everything is for us to become accepting and aware of when we fall short. Because in all things, God works for our good, for those who love Him and who have been called according to His purpose. God wants to help us with failure. Let's be aware of how it enters into our life and ask Him to assist us.